Welcome to the Sleep Sense Show. As always, brought to you by the Sleep Sense program, where podcast listeners can get a free customized sleep plan by going to www.sleepsense.net/listen.
Hi, I'm Dana. Welcome to the show. Sleeping with a toddler is like sharing your bed with a drunk octopus looking for his car keys. I don't know who said that, but I think it's a pretty accurate description of trying to sleep with a tiny child in your bed. Usually there's a foot in your face, or they're glued to your side, or they're on top of you. You name it, they're doing it. And the truth of the matter is that children in general are very active sleepers. If you watch a toddler, if they're in a crib, you'll notice that they're at one end, they move to the other end, they're at the right side, the left, they're all over the place, and that's really normal. So it makes it very difficult when you're trying to share a bed with them. So today I want to give you some tips. If you're in a situation where you're ready to end the bed sharing experience, then you are in the right place today, because I'm going to share with you my top tips for getting your kids out of your bed. The first thing I think you need to consider is that you're going to have a little bit of mixed emotion around this, and that's totally valid and fair. You know, a lot of the clients that I've worked with, they have a little mourning period, really. You know, there's something lovely about sharing your bed with a cuddly little person. I've never done it, but I can imagine that is something that you grow used to and love in lots of ways. Having a snuggle is a lovely experience to have with your children. And so I'll give you a little bit of guidelines for how you can still incorporate cuddles into your day, but certainly not make it a dependency as such. But get okay with that, okay? Get okay with the fact that you're going to have mixed emotions around this. On the one hand, you can't wait. You're going to have a celebration for that magical day that you get to have your own bed all to yourself again. But on the other, there's going to be a little bit of sadness there, or sort of a grieving period where you're going to miss it. That's okay. Just acknowledge it and keep moving forward with your eye on the prize that you're going to have your own bed and your child's going to be comfortable in their own bed. And it's going to be a win-win situation for both of you in the long run. All right, so how do we do this? Now, a lot of people, I find, are bed sharing out of necessity. So it wasn't a conscious choice you made way back in the day that you were going to be that kind of parent who shared your bed with your child until they left home. That wasn't a choice that most people made. But they found over the years, or over the course of the first year, that everybody got a little bit more sleep if the child was in bed with you, and so you just did it to survive. So maybe you're in that place now where you're like, okay, I'm over this, right? I never chose this. I never really wasn't a conscious decision we made. Maybe your partner is getting a little frustrated with the situation as well, or he's been sleeping on the couch for the last 6 months. Whatever the scenario is, you've decided it's time to move forward. And I applaud you, because ultimately I believe that parents should be in their own bed, and children should be in their own bed. And I believe that is the way to keep a marriage healthy. I think it's perfectly fine and acceptable to have some space from your children, and basically that little, imaginary signpost that says, hey, this is for your dad and I, or your mom and I, or whoever is your partner. And that is an okay thing, that you have a room or a bed that is just yours and yours alone. Your child does not need to be a part of every single thing in your life. So, yay, we're going to do this and move forward with getting your children out of your bed. Now, some of you may have you've chosen this, right? And that's okay too. For a lot of people, bed sharing works, and that is a choice people make, and that is completely yours and yours alone to decide upon. However, maybe you're at the point now where you're thinking, okay, that's enough of that. We're ready to transition our child out of our bed. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of caution if you're not quite there yet. Sleep habits are habits, like everything else in your life, and habits are hard to break, no matter what habit we're talking about, whether it's a good one for your greater good. Even good habits are hard to establish. So any way you slice this is going to be a difficult task for both you and the child. And there most likely won't be a magical day where your child says, okay, I'm ready. I'll go to my own bed now and sleep there. That's what a lot of people are waiting for. And I'm here to tell you that the reality of that is that it won't happen, because we're creatures of habit. And we tend to be very, very protective, in particular, of our sleep environment and our sleep habits. I call them our sleep strategies. So if you get used to the idea that you share a bed with another human being, then when that human being's not there, it causes you some anxiety. Even as adults, when our partners are away on business or whatever the case may be, we tend to have a rough night or two as we get used to the idea that they're not there. It also took time to get used to the fact that they were there. But once we get used to these things, then they become a part of our habits and our environment, and that's hard to break. So you've decided. The day has come. Now make sure that there's nothing, you don't want to do this right in the middle of a big work project that you've got a deadline on, or that you're about to go on holidays in a couple of weeks, or the new baby's coming, you got to make sure that there's some space in your life to make this a commitment and really stick forward with it. But let's say you've done that and you're ready to start. It's always good to set the stage, right? Depending on how old your child is, if they're, of an age where they can communicate with you, that you can clearly communicate your expectations. I would say even from 2 and up, you can communicate your expectations and start talking about, you have your own bed, mommy has her own bed, we're both going to sleep better if we sleep in our own beds. And you can explain that other people do this. You could pick up some books from the library and show pictures of other people sleeping in their own bed, other children sleeping in their own bed. You might even want to create a little coloring book that's just for your child particular, where you walk through the bedtime routine and you explain that you're going to get into your bed and you're going to fall asleep and have a great night's sleep there, and why sleep's important. So you're explaining your expectations. We can't just assume that children understand what we're up to or get it or understand the why of why we're making these decisions. It's not a punishment, so you want to make clear that this isn't anything you've done bad or wrong. It's just a step forward, and everybody's going to have a better quality sleep when we're in our own beds. So be careful you don't over talk about it, right? You just want to mention it, kind of have a little meeting about it, get them excited about it. But if you go on and on too much about it, it can have the opposite effect. And the child will start to feel really anxious about that discussion and get themselves all worked up. So by the time the first night rolls around, they're having a meltdown. So be cautious. Another thing you want to set the stage with is some let's get excited about this. So maybe you pick out a new comfort toy that's going to be their sleeping buddy now. Make sure you've got a clock in there so that they can monitor what time it is. And I do a clock with children 2 and up. You can go fancy and get, one of those okay to wake clocks where the sun comes up or the bunny wakes up or whatever it is. There's lots of them on the market now. Just be really careful that anything you choose does not emit a very bright light, and in particular, no blue or green light should be coming out of it at all. That will interfere with melatonin levels and make it more tricky for your child to fall asleep and stay asleep. So something very low, hopefully, preferably a yellowish glow or a red glow are the two that I would pick. Rewards are also a great thing to start talking about. Listen, you can explain, hey, I know this is going to feel a little weird for the first few nights. It might be a little hard for you to fall asleep, and it might feel a little strange. If you can do it, then you get a prize in the morning. So set the stage around what that prize is going to look like. Try to make it as immediate as you possibly can, especially young children, sort of the 2 to 5-ish age range. They don't do great with rewards that they have to wait for. So as soon as it's morning and you're up for the day, if they had a great night and stayed in their bed, they get some sort of tangible reward, preferably something that they can eat or hold. Not great with this age group to promise more screen time or TV or something that's just a little bit too vague. make sure that they can get it in their hot little hands as if they manage to stay in their own bed. All right. Another tip would be that if your child's really super dependent, usually it's on mom, then give them a t-shirt or a nightgown that you often sleep in, and see if you can exchange the nightgown for you and say, listen, mommy's not going to lay here anymore, but you can have my favorite pair of jammies. You can cuddle it. You can spread it on you. You can, snuggle with it. A lot of kids like that gift, right? That you've basically sacrificed your favorite jammies for them. It's got a feel to it, and it might even have a smell to it that they appreciate. So that's definitely worth a try. Okay, so once you've set the stage, again, it depends how far into the process you are. If you don't have a bedtime routine established, you're going to want to start. And I would say you start night one. If she's in her own bed tonight, then we're going to start with about a 20 to 30 minute bedtime routine. They're really important, even for adults. We have to give our bodies and our brains some time to process the idea that we're going to bed for the night. It's a cueing system, basically, for the body and the brain. So a bath, into jammies, brush teeth, have a couple of stories together. Should be activities that are enjoyable, not too, you're not going to play tickle fight or tag at this point in the night. You want to have them sort of move in a very step-by-step fashion so your child begins to predict what's going to come next and get used to this whole process. And that can be a nice time together right before bed. If you've been sleeping in your child's bed, which is the most common way the night starts for most people, that you lay down in her bed with the hopes that maybe magically she'll sleep right through and not come to you in the night, doesn't usually happen. But if you've been lying down in your child's bed at bedtime, when you do your story time together, move that out of the bed. So throw some pillows down or get a beanbag chair and make that now sort of story corner, or this is where we're going to start for stories. You just want to get her off of this idea that you get into her bed for any reason. And anyone who's having sleep challenges, the first piece of advice is that you don't do other activities in your bed. You don't read in bed. You don't watch TV in bed. You don't work in bed. You just start sending this message to your brain and your body that when you go to that particular place, it's for sleep and sleep alone. So let's follow suit with that and get our story corner set up. Now, here's the crux of the issue, right? You've set the stage. You've talked it all through. Now it's the time for your child to crawl into her own bed. You should expect pushback. There is no way, maybe magically 1 in 100 children go, okay, I get it, I'm doing it, I'm fine. But most children are going to have some sort of pushback around that. There's going to be probably protests, there might be tears, there could be bargaining, really anything, depending on how old your child is. You need to prepare yourself for this. Right? This is not going to go easily. Again, it has really nothing to do with anything other than we are protective of our sleep habits. We don't like change. We don't like surprises. And anyone's going to feel uncomfortable. If I came into your room tonight and made some even minor changes to the way you get yourself to sleep, you're going to have anxiety. Absolutely no way around it. The only way to get to the other side is to go through this. And so the good news is that as the nights go on, she's going to get more used to it, and eventually it's going to become habit and it'll be no big deal, but that's going to take time, right? And you can be sure that in those first few nights, there's going to be some sort of protest put forth because we want the easier, softer way. Just lay down with me, Mommy. Just let me get into your bed, Mommy. These are going to be the things that you're going to hear. So prepare yourself for it. You've made a decision, you're moving forward, you will not give in around this. This is what's happening. Now, the Sleep Sense program has a great method that I call the stay in the room method, and it's perfect for this scenario because it is a hard transition for a child to go from sleeping with you to sleeping on their own. And the stay in the room method is going to give you the most gentle way that we can possibly do this, right? Without magic, is to teach our children how to fall asleep in their own bed with our support, right? With our support. So that's going to basically walk you through the whole process of getting yourself out of their bed, then moving you out of their room, and eventually having a child who's independently sleeping well and through the night. So I would encourage you to pick that up. It's, more than I can share on this particular podcast. And then you've got the resources there to help you if you have any snags along the way. But that is what needs to happen, is the child needs to become comfortable with this idea that, hey, I can do this myself. I don't need any extra stuff, any extra people. I can do it on my own. And the good news is when they master this, there's going to be a real sense of ownership over their own sleep. And it's going to give them there's going to be some pride there on their part that, hey, I can do this now and I can do it by myself. And that's going to prepare them for the rest of their life. I'm telling you, I've worked with children as old as 12 who have lots of anxiety about sleeping by themselves because they've always slept in their parents' bed. And that starts to cause issues with sleepovers. You're not going to invite your buddy to come sleep over if you halfway through the night have to go sleep with your mom, right? That's going to feel a little bit of, you're going to have a little bit of shame or embarrassment around that. And so it's going to cause some problems. I had a client, I was hired to work with their son because he wanted to go to sleepaway camp in the summer months. And the way things stood, he didn't feel comfortable or confident being able to do that because he had such a dependency on sleeping with his mom in the night. So it's a good step in the right direction to get your children comfortable with the idea of sleeping on their own. Now, consistency is always the key, right, in anything parenting. And I'm warning you, especially if this has gone on for years, there's a potential for wear down in this process, right? You're really gung-ho the first night, you make it through. The next night feels a little bad still. Sometimes night 2 is actually a bit worse on the protest front than night 1 because the child's like, hey, we're doing this again? I don't think so. But you need to stay consistent with it. The good news is it will get easier. It absolutely will. But it's going to take a couple of weeks. I just want to manage your expectations around this, that this is going to take a couple of weeks, especially if we're talking about children into the 3, 4, 5-year age range, especially if they've basically run the show around sleep or been the boss about sleep up until this point. It's going to take time to sort of reestablish the power balance here and get that consistency going. And these might also be children who are very clever and understand that the more that they can wear you down, that the more that they push this and the more they dig their heels in, the greater the chances that you're going to give in. So you need to make a commitment to yourself that you're not going to do that. And perhaps you make a commitment as partners that you're going to stay strong through this. Perhaps you trade nights, it's your night to deal with it, and give each other a bit of a break so that you can stay the course. But the stay in the room method does keep the tears down, the protest down, because you're not really going anywhere. You're not giving in wholly in that you're letting them sleep with you or that you're sleeping with them, but you're still present, okay? So it's not as much of a shock to the system, to the child, and it usually gets better as the days go on if everything's going correctly. So be patient, give it time, give lots of praise. Remember that this is hard, and it's going to be hard for all of you. And do it now. Don't wait. Like I said, it does not get any easier. And it really is a beautiful gift to give your child. That independent ability to sleep well without relying on extra stuff or people is I believe, one of the best gifts we can give our children. So tonight's the night. Good luck and sleep well.
Thanks so much for listening. For more great tips on helping your child sleep through the night, remember to subscribe, rate, and review the show on iTunes or Stitcher, and never miss an episode.